All right, we're getting close to the end of this limited series. Let's talk about Disclaimer Episode 6. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass, and we are on Episode 6 of this 7-part limited series. Disclaimer Episode 6, titled 6, Roman 6, VI. It is coming to Apple TV Plus on November 1st, 2024. It is the episode before the finale of this limited series. It's been really good so far. I didn't love the last episode, although I liked the comments. I loved all the conversation about the last episode. I thought it was really interesting and very helpful for me to help understand Nicholas. Now, is Episode 6 a better episode in my mind? Yeah, I definitely think it is. I definitely think you should watch it. I thought it did a lot to set up the conclusion, kind of like got rid of some of the ambiguity in some of the characters. I just don't know if there will be enough time in the final episode to fully develop some of the things that we learned in Episode 6, but I guess we'll find out next week. I did enjoy it. I thought it was a good episode. It was very clean, very easy to follow. So definitely different from some of the earlier Disclaimer episodes. It seems as we have progressed in this series, it has become more of a kind of linear storyline, which makes sense, right? You're not telling 3 different stories. You're telling basically one. This one is like 1 1/4. So I definitely think you should check it out. If you haven't seen Disclaimer yet, definitely watch it. It is a really good series. I've liked every episode, even last week's episode. I liked some parts of it. So I've liked this series throughout, and I definitely think you should watch it. Make sure to catch up now so you can be ready for the finale when it drops next week. So I'm going to tell you a little about the episode, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't know what happens in this episode, and you might, there are some big surprises here. I would turn it off when I get to the recap. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler-free, unless you want to get to those spoilers. So in Disclaimer Episode 6, it kind of starts off right after what happened in Disclaimer Episode 5, where Nicholas was in a heroin den. Well, we kind of see what happens to him after, and also get some more revelations about what happened in that fateful Italian trip all those years ago. So, things I liked about this episode. The first, I love the cast. I still love the cast. It's a fantastic cast. I did like how this episode focuses a lot on Cate Blanchett, and she really kind of like has a lot of different roles to play. And I thought that she did a really good job. Definitely helps her character a lot. Definitely helps with some of the things that are happening. I still love Sacha Baron Cohen as Robert. I just love this entire cast. I thought it was fantastic. I've loved this cast throughout. I think they're all very interesting characters, and so I enjoyed spending time with them here. And I guess we only have one more episode left of them. The second thing I love the perspective. This changes some of the things we've learned about this story, which I thought was interesting. And it does it in a very subtle way. I love that it didn't like hammer the viewer on the head. At the start, I was kind of confused what it was talking about. But then like as it continued, I did love how it kind of like changed the story that we've heard, which I thought was very interesting. The third thing I love the revelations. We get some revelations on some of the characters, some of their motives, especially Stephen Brickstock. We get some big revelations there. So I liked that. It seems to kind of be setting up a very interesting finale, which I guess we'll find out next week. Things I didn't love as much. The first, I didn't love the length. It's only 44 minutes. Disclaimer has been getting bigger. I've loved this world. I've loved kind of what we learned. And so it's been getting longer, and then this one is a big cut. The last episode was like 55 minutes. This is 43. So like I said, I didn't have to explain as much, but hey, I always want more. And the last thing I didn't love the ending as much. I'll go into it a little bit. I'm sure that they'll explain it more in the next episode, but it felt like kind of a strange shift. So I'm going to go into it in the recap. I'm not going to go into it here, but the ending was kind of out there. But otherwise, I really enjoy the series. I love the series. I think it's been really good so far. So I definitely think you should check it out. If you haven't seen this series, get on it now, because the finale is next week. You have 1 week to catch up before you can be there for the finale. And if you do watch it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And now I'm going to go into a recap. So if you don't know what happens this episode, I would turn off now because there will be spoilers. So I mentioned I liked the perspective. This episode starts with kind of a story from Catherine. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh, she's just trying to like justify and like make it feel better for herself. Because she's talking about how she, when Robert left, she didn't want him to leave. She was so lonely, things like that. It sounded like she was just like justifying her actions, trying to change the narrative. But as the episode continued, there are little snippets here and there of the story from Catherine's perspective. And I liked this. I thought it was interesting. It kind of like changed up some of what we thought. The story that we heard earlier was Nancy's telling the story. We didn't know that. I mean, I guess you can kind of think about that because we had the book, The Perfect Stranger. The story that we know about Italy, about Catherine and Jonathan's romance, about what happened with Nicholas, was from Nancy's perspective. And Nancy didn't have a perspective because she wasn't there. So we find out that Nancy, like, had visited the places, right? She and Steven had gone to the places after Joinathan had died and visited them. So she knew what they were like, but she didn't know what the actual events were. So she kind of like came up with what happened based on where they went and also the pictures, the racy pictures and the beach pictures that she had, and kind of came up with a narrative for what we saw in the book. And, if we believe Catherine, which I think we can, I think, I'm sure she's changing some things as with every perspective, right? Like it changes over time. But if we believe what Catherine says, the meeting between her and Joinathan seemed to be very different. And so we get to see, this meeting from her point of view, which I thought was interesting. I thought it was fun to like see the conflicting narratives that we've learned so far. So, and one thing with Nancy's explanation is it seems like she tries to like build Joinathan up in a better light. So, for example, one of the things that she changed for the book, we know that she changed this, is that Joinathan and Sacha had a big fight during the trip, and that's why Sacha came home from England. It wasn't that her like aunt died, it wasn't anything like that. She and Joinathan had a fight, and so she left. So it kind of like seems like Nancy was trying to like smooth over some of the rough edges with Joinathan. Also in Nancy's book, Joinathan is kind of like this naive kid who was like taken over by this like temptress, this seductress Catherine. And it plays well for the book. It plays well for like Nancy's thoughts of him, of this like innocent kid who's just traveling, who like gets eaten up by this like seductress succubus. But from Catherine's perspective, it's very different. So on Catherine's side, she said she didn't want Robert to leave. And when he left, she was sad he was gone and she felt lonely, but she seemed to be having fun with Nicholas. And when they first met, when she first met Joinathan on the beach, she just saw that he was staring at her and that she noticed he had a nice camera and that he was like, staring at her, and she felt a little self-conscious. And so she packed up with Nicholas, and she doesn't think that she flirted with him when she saw him, but maybe she did like smile at him. And that gave her a little bit of a boost because this like younger kid is like attracted to her, like made her feel good. But she didn't like go out there and, seduce him. She stayed with Nicholas until he went to sleep, which she always did. And once he went to sleep, he was out. So she got up and like realized that she was pretty happy to be alone now. She was sad when Robert had left, but now she was kind of content with their trip. She was happy to be with Nicholas, and she went down to the bar to get a glass of wine. And when she was down there, she saw Joinathan there, and Joinathan was like staring at her, and she kind of like smiled, and she got her drink and then headed back to her room. And he had this like intense attention on her and like offered her a seat next to him. And she said that like this attention did make her excited, but she didn't like go there. She went back to the elevator and got in it. And that's where we end. So we don't know. We don't even know if the elevator doors closed. We don't know if like the elevator doors closed and then she like went back up. It's possible that she was in there and then Joinathan made a move, and that could have been how their relationship started. All we see is her in the elevator with her glass of wine, and that's when like her recollection that we get ended. I'm sure we'll get more. I'm sure we'll get more information, but that is what we get. So I liked this different perspective. I liked how Catherine was, sad, but then she kind of like felt happy and was independent. And then Joinathan was this kid who was like obsessed with her. Now, obviously, this could just be how she's visioning it. It could be how she's justifying what happened. Who knows? But I did like having both perspectives. Now, that is the story we hear about Catherine like through the episode. Going back to, I guess, the real world now, whatever you want to call it, Nicholas gets dropped off at the hospital by, some of the people in the heroin den. They like basically drive by, throw him out of the car, and drive away. Now, Catherine is worried about Nicholas because he called her at like 4 a.m, incoherently, wasn't responding, and then she couldn't get him after that. So she goes to Robert to try to find him. And when she's there, she's like looking for him. Robert's asleep. She wakes him up. And it was interesting here because Catherine was very genuinely concerned about Nicholas. She'd heard that call. She was worried about him. She was trying to find Nicholas. And Robert, who we've always thought of as like, the more patient, the more gentle one, the one that's like, a caring father, he just like starts berating Catherine. Basically, like talks about like her affair and how she's a horrible mother and things like that the entire time that Catherine is looking for evidence of where Nicholas is because she is worried. Now, eventually, she gets a call from the hospital and we find out that Nicholas has a stroke and he's at the hospital. So Catherine and Robert go there. They apparently are still upset with each other, as you'd imagine. And so they have to take like conflicting shifts. They have to take alternating shifts to watch over Nicholas. Now, Steven, it seems, tries to start erasing his work. He deletes the Instagram account, which I thought was a little weird because he didn't even know that Nicholas was in the hospital. He just like deleted it, I guess, because he had done what he wanted to do. He like told Nicholas about his mother and showed her all the pictures. But he ends up deleting his Instagram account, and then Robert calls him and tells him after this that Nicholas was in the hospital, and Stephen asks if he could visit. He wants to like visit the person that his son died saving. And so when you go, Robert agrees because, and so Robert agrees, and so when Nicholas goes, it seems like he's going to exact his revenge and finish off Nicholas. And I wasn't sure what Stephen's ultimate plan was, if he wanted to like have Nicholas die, or if he wanted to just have Nicholas suffer, or psychologically torment him so that he could then torment Catherine. But it seems like what Stephen wants is for Nicholas to die so Catherine can experience that loss, and then he wants to kill her. That seems to be his ultimate plan. So he goes to the hospital, pretending to be like the Catherine's father looking after his grandson, but he comes with a vial of something, like a syringe of something. It seems like he's going to push into Nicholas's IV. Now, when he gets there, he's alone with him, but Catherine just ends up showing up. And when she gets there, she sees Stephen and just like has a fight with him and pushes him off. And it's fun because like the hospital attendants all think like, oh my God, like you're attacking your father. What are you doing? And she's like, that's not my father. I don't know who that person, like that person is like harassing me. But because Catherine's the aggressor here, they take her away and they like treat Stephen. So Catherine saved Nicholas's life here, and everyone thinks that she's the villain, and everyone thinks that Stephen is the victim. So the hospital treats Stephen. They give him some painkillers and some sleeping pills and tell him, he's on his way. Now, that night, Stephen is back home and Catherine breaks into his house. It was a weird thing that happened because Catherine like breaks his window, opens his door, and like essentially walks through the house and goes to the backyard. And she's like standing out there in the backyard when Stephen comes down with a cricket bat. And he turns on some lights. We see that Catherine has a knife. Um, I don't know why he then invites her in. He invites her in to his house and she comes in. He's not even on guard. I would be on guard. Like she's sitting there with a knife. And he just like invites her in. He doesn't have the cricket bat anymore. I would like take a couple steps back, hold the cricket bat up, and be like, "You can come in and like put the knife down." But no, she comes in, she sits down. He prepares her tea, and they're real close to each other. And he's preparing her tea. He has his back to her, but like it's clear he's doing something. He crushes 6 sleeping pills and puts that into her cup, and then he prepares the tea. And Catherine is looking at him when he's doing this. So you feel like Catherine would know that he's doing this. I don't know. Maybe she doesn't care at this point. Maybe she just is done with whatever's going on. So he prepares the tea. He makes hers special and then pours the tea and gives it to her. They talk a little bit about the book, and Catherine seems to be probing how Nancy got some of this information because she says that she had really vivid descriptions of certain incidents and things like that. And so I think she wants to know if Nancy had like more information, who else knew about this story. And Stephen just basically says like Nancy was a great writer. That's what great writers do. They like take the facts and like embellish them and things like that. So I don't know if Catherine accepts this, but eventually, after they talk a little bit, she slaps him, takes a sip of her tea, which is weird because I thought, she should have seen that he put something in there. Maybe she doesn't care again. And then she says, it's time for my voice to be heard. And that's it. That's the episode. And I was like, okay, like, A, how did she not see that he was preparing this? Why did she like break into his house only to then go into the backyard and like she made some observation about like this is where you were when the police told you about them, which again, weird. She didn't attack him when she came in, even though she had a knife. I don't know if she was worried for her safety, but that was also very weird. And then she says it's time for my voice to be heard. She's telling the story in this like in the dead of night in Steven's house with someone that clearly hates her. Like, I don't know if she wants a confessional or what. If she wants her voice to be heard, she should take out an article in this paper that she works in, this investigative journalist that she does. Like, that's how her voice should be heard. Here, I don't know if she just wants to like confess to Steven, come to terms with Steven. I don't know why, but when she says that, it felt a little weird because this is like the last place her voice is going to be heard. Steven hates her. He doesn't want anything to do with her. He wants to kill her. He wants to kill her son. If she tells him her story, he might just kill her anyways. We don't know. He might call her a liar. He has the upper hand here. It's a very weird ending. So, what do I think is going to happen next? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think someone's going to die. Someone will die. Maybe Nicholas. He might die. But Catherine is sipping the tea, so I feel like she's going to tell her story, and eventually she might pass out from the tea. Steven does want to kill her, but I think if she passes out, that's going to mess with his plan. He wants her to know that Nicholas is dead. So I don't know if something weird is going to happen here. One thing I thought is that perhaps during the talk, she could have found out that Steven did this to Nicholas, and she could kill him in rage, and that would be an interesting ending, and that would then like complete her villain arc. That could be interesting. Steven could kill her because he hates her, and then Robert could maybe come by for some reason or find out about this, and he could kill Steven, which would be an interesting twist for him since he hasn't shown a ton of emotion except when he kicked out Catherine. And I don't know, maybe Nicholas could survive. I don't know. Someone's gonna die though. My money would be on Catherine because she has had a downward spiral, but she is in a redemption arc. She is telling her story. She is trying to talk to Steven, so perhaps it will be Steven, and then that whole circle will be complete. The whole family will be complete in a grave, although Steven's not going to be with his family because they're in his plot and he's going to have to be in a separate plot, but they'll all be together symbolically, spiritually, whatever you want to call it. So that is Disclaimer, season 1, episode 6. Like I said, I think you should watch it. I think it sets up an interesting ending that'll happen next week. The finale is next week, so I'm excited to see where it goes. And if you do check it out, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.